All right, I'd like to resume the 2018 budget hearings. It is 10:30 plus a little bit, and we have the Regional Sewer District making their presentation today, so I'll turn it over to Mike. If you could, since we're recording, if you could make sure everybody is introduced.
Should we, do we need to talk into the microphone, or does it pick up our sound?
It'll pick up.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you, Commissioners. It's good to be here today to go through our proposed budget for 2018. We have today a crew so that we can answer any questions that you have. Starting on this end, we have Gina DeWitt. Gina is our fiscal supervisor, and really is the person, I told her I'd wait to give her all the credit till we saw what you thought of the budget, but she really was the architect that pulled it all together. So, and then obviously Tiffany Mag. Tiffany's going to kind of go through a lot of the information today. We have Eric McPeak. Eric is kind of wears two hats. He does treatment engineering for us, but also he is the one that's kind of the front line on the solid waste transfer station that he's going to talk about. And then we have Mark Chandler, our operations superintendent, and Corey Smith, our assistant operations superintendent. So just kind of going through our presentation, you have a copy of it. And once again, please feel free to, your questions can when you see something, ask. That's what we, instead of waiting to go through it at the end. But the first thing that, let me see. Okay.
Is it on?
Are you turn on just the side? Yeah, it's green.
Our budget's going to include a new remote.
Gina, are you responsible for this?
Yeah, you should have waited it, Mike. Give her all the credit.
Okay.
Need a battery?
The old battery out, back in trick. So first off, what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about 2017. I think it's important before you go into budgeting for it's always interesting, you're budgeting for the next year when you really haven't closed the year that you're currently working in. And I think that sometimes a tendency is to go off your 2017 budget numbers, which may not be a good starting point for your 2018. What we did here was we kind of consolidated, but you can see here our 2017 budgeted revenues. As you can imagine, we have our capacity fees and then our user fees. The capacity fees are a big chunk of our revenue, as well as the user fees. And you can see that when we build our financial model as part of the master plan, that this was going to be kind of the key component. That 750 new houses a year was kind of that capacity fee number. Our user rates are very, you might think that we just are amazing at projecting. Well, when you do flat rates, and it's not consumption-based, it is actually a pretty easy target to hit.
Not that good.
What's that? No, it's easy. The capacity fee number is hard. So when you look at the capacity fees, I'm happy to report that we're at we're currently over $1 million over ours, and then this column here that we're calling actuals we just used our P10 data, and we're projecting it out so we're projecting this year on capacity fees to be about $1.8 million over what our financial model was showing.
The common way the financial people talk about that is that's a forecast.
Okay, so we
Makes it really easy.
forecast.
2017 budget, 2017 forecast.
Okay, we will make that note on our sheet next time. No, that's good. And then inspection fees, one of the things I just wanted to say, on each of our projects, before a development goes to construction, the developer submits an 8% of the construction cost of the sewer only to us for us to do the inspections and administer the construction. We currently, in our policy, have where we return any unused fees back to them. We're contemplating not doing that in the future. We've had appropriations in the past, supplemental appropriations, because we usually go over our, what we projected for a refund, but that'll be something we'll talk about at another time. The plan review fees, we get 3.5% of the construction costs for us to review the plans up front. When you look at those numbers, we're forecasting to be over $800,000, okay? Just for reference, our sanitary engineering office, our salary is about $1.2 million, and then when you throw in the benefits of 50%, so about half, when I do the numbers, about half of our staffing in my office over there is paid for just by those fees, and not any of the customer service rates or anything like that. And I wanted to bring that up, not to get in the weeds, but just so you understand that when we bring in new engineers to help with plan reviews, we're really looking at those fees we're bringing in and making sure. And I think that's why when the developers want things turned around quickly, they're paying pretty good dollars to our office to have those services done.
What did you, I know we have actually reimbursed some unused inspection fees and permit fees or plan review fees. How much was that for this year? Do you know?
It's a big number.
I thought it was a fairly sizable
This year,
number.
we've returned almost $118,000. So
Between the two
inspection fees.
inspection fees?
I actually thought it would have been.
Yeah, we only return unused inspection fees, not plan review fees.
Okay.
The plan review fee is just a fee that they pay for us to review the plans.
So basically, if you hadn't been reimbursing, you'd have been on budget or very, very close.
So you're saying you're not going to reimburse in the future? Is that what I heard?
It's a policy change we may have you consider. What we find is that developers, I'll just use Pulte Homes. Pulte Homes will give us a check for $20,000. Then after the project's done, we'll reimburse them $3,000 or $4,000, and they'll get a check from us for $3,000 or $4,000. They'll call us up and be like, "What's this for?" What? And they paid us tap fees and everything like that. So it's just a consideration that I think sometimes on their end they pay it out, and so it's kind of. I think they would rather us continue with the quick service and
I was gonna say,
turnaround
that's probably more
than to get
important.
the dollars back.
Yeah, and we're also considering doing a little bit more work for that fee, not just keeping it. We're looking at cleaning and televising the sewers before we accept them on our own.
So how do you determine what part you reimburse? What is there a formula that you're using based on the time?
We track an hourly rate.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were tracking hourly.
Yeah, we track hourly rate. So
Now, how many capacity fees did you actually budget for 2017?
we
Going back to
budgeted
that.
$6,362,000.
How many taps, I guess?
It was 750,000 or 750 single family, and then there was a commercial percentage. I want to say it was like 80 commercial equivalents. So it was about 830 total.
Okay.
So we're forecasting for this year to our revenue to be about 1.7 million over what we had budgeted last year. Then when you flip to the expense side, we're only showing operating expenses. Capital can be confusing because if that's a little harder to walk through because some of our projects are not progressing as quickly, others quicker, and things of that nature. The operating expenses, when you look at services and charges, which are our utilities, professional services, smaller equipment that we're purchasing, repairs and maintenance, not the smaller equipment, but repairs and maintenance. Our budget was 6.5, and we're currently forecasting to be 4.4. Some of that, is because of, Central Alum Creek not moving as fast. We budgeted a pretty good amount for the engineering on that. But then also, I think some of our other, we're starting to do more work in-house, other things like that we're going to, walk through. Materials and supplies were, that one is a little, about $250,000 under what we had budgeted, what we're forecasting, and then salary and benefits, about $250,000 under that. So currently, when we look at operating expenses, we're looking about $2.5 million under what we had budgeted, for this year.
So you're going to bring that more in line next year?
What's that?
Are you going to bring that more in line next year, or is
Yes.
this a unique year?
You're jumping ahead.
I'm sorry.
I like it. No, that's no. But it's some of the services and charges, because if, like for Central Alum Creek, we just haven't got to the engineering on that, but we are, fine tuning some stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the electricity and chemical costs, things like that. So our proposed budget, so you can see that we're, what we're on the revenue side, we're showing what our 2017, what we're forecasting, and as you would imagine, because of the increase in our rates and also the increase in the tap fees, we're projecting about $800,000 increase from what our budget was, but we're really actually not projecting as strong a year as we had this year, which I don't think that'll be the case. But, when we look at the budget, we want to make sure that we don't get too aggressive on how we're doing that. On the operating expense side, you can see that, Gary, as you had mentioned, our budget was 13.4. What we're forecasting is 10.9, and what we're budgeting this year is 11.8. Okay, so we are, we need to keep, we do have, Mark and I have had this, we've had these discussions, we do need to keep some emergency items in there for when it happens, so we're not, so we're covered in the event that those happen, but I think you're seeing that budget is a little bit more in line with the actuals. Okay, next I was going to turn over to Tiffany to talk a little bit more in detail about these items.
We're going to dive into the big numbers here, the capacity fees and the user fees. And those are obviously where we generate the majority of our revenue. So when you kind of look at what we've been receiving for the past few years, 2014 through 2017, we're seeing that steady increase. We've gone from $3.7 million in capacity fees in 14, and then you see the housing obviously really picked up in 15 and 16, where we're at $5.6, $5.7 million. And then, like Mike had mentioned on the previous slide, 2017 has been a very big year for us. We're over $8 million is our forecast for the total capacity fees for the year. So 2018, we're being a little bit more conservative, budgeting $6.7 million, which once again is that 750 new taps for the residential equivalents. So we think this is a very conservative estimate to make sure that our financial numbers continue to look strong, but most likely will be above 750 next year.
And so why are you being real conservative on that?
That's actually something that we developed as part of the master plan financial model, is looking at 750 for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
With the amount of development that we've been seeing in the past. We could notch that up higher, but this year, one of the big users that we had come in was an apartment complex, and that's what really pushed us over the top. If we see another user like that, our numbers will be very high again, but if we don't, they may be closer to that 750 mark. So we don't want to assume that that's going to come in every year.
When are the tap fees recorded? At the point they start construction, at the point that they connect at the end?
Actually, we have a good example of that right here. You'll see in 2015, the capacity fees were 5.7 million, but the number was lower than what you see in 2016. That's because a big user paid in 2015, but didn't actually tap in and be recorded until 16.
Oh,
That's why those
okay.
numbers look.
That's, yeah.
So we do have that, where we
So
don't
they're paying
actually...
up front?
They pay up front. We don't record them as a tap until they're online.
I have another question related to TAPs. You may have an answer later, so you can stop me. We're talking about, based on our conversation a couple weeks ago, we were going to adjust tap fees for Lower Scioto. Is those numbers reflected in the budget?
No, those have not been.
I think you're going to have a resolution in the next couple, 3 weeks, so this is a very conservative budget then.
The apartment complex Tiffany was mentioning was 1.8 million.
Right.
So Pal Grand was 1.8 million. So it was Gene, it was the biggest pay-in check we ever had, correct?
The auditor's office actually called us to make sure it was.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Gee.
Now, one of the things that we are going to do, once we have actuals for 2017, we are going to have Raftilis. We worked with them on giving our preliminary budget information to them, but we'll update the financial forecast, and I think we were thinking like February or March, getting back with you and updating that financial. Because what it's going to mean is we're going to drop $4 million more to the bottom line than we were expecting this year when you look at our expenses and our revenue. So that'll allow us to maybe pay more projects in cash, or, it just it increases that financial position that we talked about, and that'll be a good time once we get that forecast updated.
Yeah, that, and we have some really important projects going on right now that are really going to shape the future of our, what we want to budget out for the next 10 years with the OECC facilities plan, as well as Central Elm Creek. I mean, those are huge price tags where if those change a little bit, that really does affect what we do in the future. So then, to kind of round out this slide here, the user fees, you can see that we're kind of just projecting that steady increase with the 750 additional ERUs to be online next year. And then similar performance, 2018, we're really thinking that it'll be, very steady as well because of some of these areas that we've talked about in the past. We have the Evans Farm development that's going to be ramping up soon and starting to see a lot of tap fees coming in that area. The US 23 corridor, we have that Hyatt's Road pump station that you recently approved for design. That'll be constructed next year, and then we'll start to see a lot of movement in that area. Liberty Sawmill is currently in construction, so once that's completed, that area we anticipate will start to grow as well. Clark Shaw, we already have the Clark Shaw Moors, and we're excited to announce that we plan to cut in the flow next Monday or Tuesday and get Lower Scioto up and running. So
Next week?
next week, yes. So that'll be really exciting to get that plant up and running and finally online.
We're going to have a big event for that, bells and whistles and balloons.
We've talked about it, yeah. We're kicking around some
Somebody,
ideas with Jane.
whoever does the worst in the presentation today has to drink the effluent when it comes out.
Oh, no. Let's step up my game. And then, of course, we have the new high school area. There's a lot of properties in for rezoning there. That's going to be a huge area for growth. 3637 is going to continue to expand once we do get that Central Elm Creek plant going. And then, of course, the Outlet Mall in North Star. Everyone knows what's happening there. So a lot of growth. I think that 750 is obviously very attainable. And then to talk a little bit about the budget increases, where we're going to be next year. Lower Scioto is the biggest one to talk about. Like I said, we plan to put that plant online next week. $589,000 is what we're anticipating for the O&M expenses there.
Now, there are some startup expenses included in that number?
That's why it's a little higher. The 589 is a little bit higher number because we're anticipating something may break down, something may need some design services.
So on an ongoing basis, is it more like 400, and that kind of what you're expecting?
I think that's where
annual
we put
operating
that,
expenses?
right? We did look at what just the O&M without all the extras that we may see next year. I think it is closer to the 400 or 450 mark. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to mentally, okay, how many customers do we have to have there to break even? It's in the 1,000 range.
Yeah, we actually did develop a financial model on that as well, that we could pull those numbers back out for you. And then North Star, that plant is up and running as well, so we see a little bit of a budget increase there, just with, continuing to, have the equipment that has some repairs, as well as the chemical and the electrical usage, just your standard, cost there with O&M. Then we have the GIS layer updates and development software. This is a pretty substantial number. There's $65,000 in there is for the GIS layer updates, which is the flyover. That's our portion that we share with the county engineer's office and I think is it regional planning.
I think it's a map room.
Map room. So it's like a three-way split that we all share that cost. And then a little over $190,000 for us to have 15 users on that new development software. Then we also have the parts and asset inventory. This is kind of a new program that we're starting down with Corey's group in maintenance. They're going to start basically having spare parts and equipment that we repair on a frequent basis, having that right there in-house and not having to call and get that stuff ordered every time something breaks down. So this will be a really important piece of what we're doing over the next few years to continue to kind of move that forward. And
That's not really a cost, that's just getting your inventory in place.
Yeah, it's more of an efficiency.
And I assume that because you do this, maybe you'll buy in better volume and get better pricing than you're buying it on emergency.
yeah, definitely. And then as far as staffing, this will be our second year of our 2016 union agreement wage increase phase-in. We were able to get the union employees onto the county comp plan, and that involved us phasing in 3 years' worth of the increases to get them to where we agreed upon. Also hiring 5 positions. One of those is a vacant position, which is a maintenance technician. 4 new positions, which include the asset coordinator. That's going to be the person that works out there in that parts and assets office and basically maintains the list of equipment and who's taking what and what we need to order as far as new equipment. And then 2 electronic maintenance staff, a level 1 and a level 2 person. One of the things that we're trying to do over the next few years is really ramp up our capabilities on SCADA and all the electronics that we have in the district. So it'll be important to have another group of guys that's able to go out and fix that stuff and troubleshoot and continue to build on what we have. And then to round it out, we have 1 staff engineer 1. We have, I think that might actually be a vacancy as well, because we've had a couple of our entry-level staff engineers that left in the past year, so we'll be looking to replace one of those, and I think we should be pretty well staffed. Savings then, the contracted and the capital improvements, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the next couple slides. That's kind of why we're looking at the new maintenance tech, the new electronic maintenance staff. We want to start doing a lot more in-house and not just, contracting a lot of work out. So I have actually a whole slide dedicated to that here. So contracted labor reduction, this is going to be very important, and this is kind of why when Mike talked about his slide, you see that we have some of the savings that we do have. Mark and Corey have been working really hard to come up with ways that we can be more efficient, ways that we can do things in-house and try to reduce that amount of capital that we spend out there at the plants every year. So they've done a really good job of coming up with a good list and already starting that in 2017, and we'll continue to carry it forward next year. So we have a whole list of things there. I don't really need to go through all of them, but basically our guys are going to go out and do preventative maintenance on the HVAC systems and the overhead doors and some of those things that we in the past contracted out because it requires a special certification. Well, now we got our guys to become certified in that. That also includes the pesticide chemical application. That requires a special test that a guy has to pass to be able to be certified to do that, and we have a guy that has done that. Calibrating flow meters, we have a new staff member that was here for 20 years, left, and then just came back, and he's also qualified to do that, so no need to hire that out anymore. So kind of the list continues to go on. We have the cash lease for the Lower Scioto treatment plant, farmland. We'll be able to save some money there as well. So we're looking at a total cost of $140,000 just in those miscellaneous items that we'll be able to save next year. There's also a laundry list of projects there that our guys plan to do, our maintenance staff plans to do in-house this year, including rehabilitating filters, replacing variable frequency drives at pump stations and for blowers, actually doing an aeration upgrade out at Scioto Reserve, which will make us more electrically efficient out there, replacing the electronics at Hoover Woods, and a couple other projects as well. So we have a good list of what our guys plan to do, and I think this will really allow us to make some headway with saving on the budget as far as, you know, some of those operating expenses. Any questions about any of those? Okay. And then wanted to talk a little bit about the capital projects. This is both the development side as well as the O&M. I tried to make this slide a little bit more streamlined than what we presented last year with every single project and the cost. What I'm trying to do here is show projects that started in 2016 and then whether or not they carried over into 17 to kind of show you what we're starting that's a new project. So basically, the master plan, we finished that up in 2016, and then Clark Shaw started in 16 and is finishing this year. Actually, it'll be finished as soon as they make that tie-in next week. Liberty Sawmill also started in 2017, and the construction will continue through 2018. That project is also a good reason as to why we're down a little bit on the budget. I think we were almost $2 million or $2.5 million below the engineer's estimate on the bid cost there. So that was a substantial savings for us as well. And then we have Peach Blow Pump Station design that has started in 17 and will continue through 18, as well as the Cheshire and Berkshire Township pump station designs as well. So those projects are all ongoing that we had out for proposal RFP stage last year. Arc Flash study will continue. OECC facilities plan. This is a major project that's going to allow us to determine, you know, what projects we actually need to perform out of OECC to get that plant capacity up a little higher there. Alum Creek mixer and aeration upgrades, that was designed in 2017, and we plan to go to construction in early 2018. This will be a very important project for us to get more electrical efficiency out of that plant as well. And then we have the Hyatts Road Pump Station. This project recently started design, and we plan to fast track that project and have construction hopefully completed by the end of next year. So we'll be allowing people to tie in probably possibly even before 2019. Lower Alum Creek, this is a very large pump station. This will take in the entire west half of the Alum Creek Basin, so the design effort is pretty substantial there. That'll continue into 2018. And then basically these are the new projects that we're budgeting that are not just carrying over. Lower Scioto, we really don't know what that is going to entail yet. Once we get the flow to the plant, we'll see how everything's working and if there is something that, you know, needs some type of a design effort and a construction repair there. And then Tartan Fields and Scioto Reserve, both of those projects will be looking to create some efficiencies and possibly capacity upgrade at Tartan Fields. So we have design efforts in place there. And then Central Alum Creek is the big one. We plan to start design next year.
So everybody's busy. So you can see that 2017 was a year to get things kicked off and that's why I think Tiffany wanted to articulate on this that, you know, it's there was probably some other small stuff in 2016, but, you know, we really ramped up, you know, this year and getting a lot of moving parts.
With the Hyatts Road Pump Station, is that will take care of the trailer park?
It will include, that will be able to flow into the pump station, yes.
Okay.
So it'll be a matter of, you know, when they go back to get their NPDES permit renewed at some point in the future.
I see.
EPA will likely require them to tie in.
That's every 5 years, right? So it depends on when it was done last.
Do you remember how many acres?
It's almost 34 acres is what the site is there.
Really? Okay. Wow, it's even more than that.
Oh, the trib area itself? Oh,
Okay, I
I'm
thought
not sure.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
It takes in a phase of Evans.
Yeah, it goes all the way over to the railroad tracks where Evans Farm is, all the way up to where the Delaware City service area
Okay.
starts, and then as far west as, basically, we can get gravity service from the pump station. There's that ditch, that ravine that runs through at Preservation Parks on Hyatt's Road.
Yes.
That's basically the west side of the service area.
Okay, oh, good,
How far
good.
south does it go?
South, it'll go all the way down to, what's the name of that property down there? Where just north of the school.
It's
with the pump
close to
station.
where the marina is, across
Paul's
the street.
Marine?
Across the street from the
Yeah.
marina up north.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, there's a couple,
Properties aren't sewered.
there's a couple properties in there. I know, Timmy, you've talked to a couple that have looked at commercial and mixed-use condos, things like that.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, there's a lot of interest. Everybody's
Oh, I
wondering when this is
bet.
going to be
Yeah.
online.
Yeah, that area should have been
Oh, should have been
sewered a
done years
long
ago.
time.
What are we talking about on 23? North of,
Yes, I'm sorry, what,
what are we talking about on 23? What, we just talking about these houses on,
South of Hyatt's,
South of-
west, east of.
right.
well, that area, they've been given an opportunity to work with us on sewer in the past, and they had declined.
Yeah, that's all the residential homes on the east side.
And
of
the
20.
developer behind them was willing to give them a sweetheart deal, and they passed on it.
Right.
What about on the west side of 23, south of Hyatt's? You know, there's the old halfway house lot, and there's the little cabin pizza. And
Yeah.
That'll be serviced, that'll be serviced as well. There's a stub that'll go down to,
Halls.
I think Pizza
Yeah.
cabin.
Cabin.
Yeah, everything up north of the parks there will be able to be serviced by the station.
And then on the east side, then from, where will that go, then north
It'll
and
go
south?
from Hyatt's
From
down
Hyatt's.
to,
The road, really.
It goes to it'll go to the railroad tracks on, Hyatt switches to Shanahan, and it takes in, I want to say there's like 800 to 1,000 acres that's tributary.
Okay, okay.
It's a big,
It is a big area.
it's a big area.
I was thinking it was more like 1,200.
Wait.
It's
Okay.
pretty large.
And all four quadrants around that intersection.
That's great, that's
Yeah.
great. Boy, really,
Yeah,
really needed there.
Pump station design is going to be very interesting because we go from basically no flow up to a really huge station, so it's
Yeah.
kind of.
Since those houses have passed on providing, will they be responsible to get the sewer line down to those houses in addition to the tap fee?
Yeah, we're not planning on running it that far south.
Because they had opportunities they passed on.
Right, right. The preference would have been to take gravity service that way, but that just wasn't in the cards.
And the
at the
developer
time.
behind them, I believe, was going to pay their tap fees for them, but they passed. The Tartan Fields, where do we stand on that? We really haven't talked about the agreement. Is that getting close to fruition?
It is, I would say that what the developer's attorney gave Eric yesterday, in my discussions with Eric, I think we're there. I haven't officially gotten that from him.
It's
but-
consistent with what?
Yes, what we've talked about. So we have plans on the EPCON site that are in our office ready to, they've actually gotten a PTI, so they're ready to go on that.
Those will be our taps.
Those will be our taps. So we did some in-house repairs earlier this year, and did we have any issues out there when we got all that rain over the weekend? That's what I think about in the morning time, but so we were pretty good out there. So we'll have those taps. There's also I think the developer says potentially you could have 130 more out there. So there's quite a bit of connections.
Developer being EPCON, developer being,
The other
NHG. So I think you'll see something. That's what's holding up the tap fee resolution, because I want to get this taken care of, and then the other will come. Because we want to set tap fees for this as well, or for Tartan Fields.
they'll be affected by it as well. Maybe I missed it. Maybe, are we staffed properly for Lower Sauter when the flow starts coming there, or is that going to require any more staffing?
And Mark, you can, I think we're staffed for the initial. I think that as it continues to, we're pulling some folks from the package plants to help out there. Instead of creating a separate staff there, we merged it with the package plant. So we have one manager and staffing. So we're not projecting this year, but I think, it was definitely, we talked about additional operators there, but it didn't quite make our list for this year. So I would say next year.
I didn't see anything, I just knew we were going to have a surprise later, was it had been thought about, so, okay.
There's a lower Scioto, there's a lot. We talked to the EPA about increasing the limits out there. We engage legal staff. And, because if the limits that are imposed on that, I think there would be some, immediate changes we'd need to make or plan for. That's what we're planning for. We've heard a little bit. We're not confident yet, but we're hearing that we might get a compromise with the EPA, but we'll know more, I think, in the next couple of weeks on that. So,
How many
I can't tell you
users?
much about it now, but
How many users are we diverting to the lower Scioto?
Is it what?
300 or something?
350 maybe?
350?
It's actually close to
500.
500.
pump station as well.
Will all of them go next week?
Yeah.
So it's not phased in, I mean, it's all 500?
Yeah, so we're diverting a pump station, and then not too far away, we're actually going to make a tie-in with an existing manhole that will allow, I think there's maybe 300 homes in that area, that once we make that tie-in, they'll go over, and then about 150 or 200 homes that the valve is all ready to go with this pump station. We just make the turn, and the flow will start going like right away.
So the northern part of Size subdivision is going to be, they're going to be specially privileged to go to Lower Scioto, and the southern part will be going to.
So which group will side be in?
I'm staying. He'll stay. He's staying with the Scioto Reserve. So, but there'll be a divide in that subdivision. There'll be those that go to.
I'm surely thankful for the experts that we have doing this when you're talking about switching 500 homes or something from one sewer. Whew, it's in good hands.
But yeah, and we have Clark Shaw.
Yeah, we'll let Mike do the honors with the valve. You can go out there and turn the valve for us.
The official valve turning.
Valve turning.
Oh, boy.
Just some things to kind of, where we're headed with stuff. You're starting to, as you guys know, even though we talk about making changes, the savings sometimes isn't immediate. I think our big focus, when we come back next year with our 2019 budget, we're electrically, we actually budgeted, when John Melvin did the most recent electrical, bid, we got a really good price, and so we saved about 10%. Mark, which fee is that? Is the usage fee or?
That was on the generation service. With that, the bid that John did through Cider Energy was the generation service provider. The only difference with that, AEP still holds the distribution and transmission, and they've actually raised the rates. So it kind of balances out, but we still should see, what we've looked at, we still should see across the district anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 savings just by the lower kilowatt hour fee. So it was a real good bid. I think it was a lot. It was more savings this time than it was 3 years ago. I think we did it. So it was a good deal.
Unfortunately, when you look at our electricity number, it's actually going up because when you add the new facilities, it's something. But as we look at our treatment plants and we do like Tiffany mentioned, the Elm Creek aeration upgrades, there's some pretty good savings with that project. So that's kind of one of our core focus as we go through these projects, to look at electrical savings at our treatment facilities. Also, chemical costs are another area of focus. Tomorrow on the agenda, we have a contract to start evaluating our bioxide feed at our pump stations. There's other technology out there that doesn't use a chemical and different things like that. So those are kind of our focus as you see future budgets moving forward, where we're kind of setting ourselves up for right now. So.
I'll be talking about the solid waste transfer station. Real briefly, we have a fund balance of just over $2 million in cash. We can get into why that number is so high here in a minute. Budgeted revenue for next year, we kept that at $200,000. That's our fee, basically, to the contractor who runs the site. We share in their revenue. I think it's around 7%, and that's, yeah. They've had a couple really good years, and they've seen a lot more flow this year, and they're anticipating more next year, but it'll be right around $200,000 in revenue.
The lady that complained about being closed when she tried to, that all got taken care of?
Yes, yeah, I talked to the owner of the company that runs that, and he had a really nice conversation with her, and as far as I know, everything is okay on that front, so yeah. Yep, he talked to her and got it straightened out, so. The budgeted expenditures for next year, there's a little bit of carryover. We were doing some design of some of the important things that have to happen inside the facility, the tip floor edge, and just some safety stuff. And that's going to be final design, and we'll do that next year. What we're doing is things that have to be done, and also the first phase of pavement. It's going to be good to phase it in anyways, but to be a little bit conservative, to try and keep our account balance high. And that goes back to why the fund balance is there. Next year, we're going to do a facility plan for the solid waste transfer station in regards to what are the current flows of waste. It's only a certain amount of time before there's going to be more customers coming in, and that place is it's very busy right now, and at some point it'll be under capacity. So we need to decide, what this plan is going to look at, what we're going to do in the future, project some flows forward. We also need to consider that the jail expansion or relocation, or that it's in their plan, I believe, to expand. They need more room. Relocations are expensive, so whatever they decide to do there. But the jail expand, if it does expand, we'll have to decide what we want to do in the solid waste business. We do provide a really good service to the city of Delaware and the surrounding area. We're the closest drop for waste for a lot of users, commercial, residential, things like that. And to look more into the facility plan, we'll get that project underway, but we're also going to go down to Montgomery County. So we take a percentage of the revenue, we own the site, and we basically manage a contract and handle the EPA requirements. Montgomery County goes to the complete opposite direction. They have, I believe they have their own trash trucks. They have a giant facility that's very busy. They even have a really interesting, I guess it gets a lot of visitors. It's like an educational center, almost like a waste museum and a reuse museum. So we're going to go down there hopefully here in December and just see what's available, what kind of services, so that when we get this facilities plan, we can come back and talk about options and make some decisions on what to do in the future. But the account balance, the fund balance is there. It's an enterprise account, but it's there to help with that, whatever that next step is. So
The $320,000 of budgeted expenditures, how much of that is capital versus just ongoing operating costs, would you say?
I think
Question for Gina.
the capital, it's, yeah, you have it.
The capital is $160,000.
160?
160.
$20,000 for surface water control, $50,000 for the driveway pavement maintenance, and then resurfacing the trailer loading dock is $40,000, and replacing the tip floor edge is $50,000.
The tip floor edge project probably won't be that much. But again, there's a couple alternatives there, but it depends on how long we want to be at that site. That's really going to, we'll make some decisions based on what's best to spend the money on, depending on the facilities plan, so.
Yeah, I think when you look at that, it's kind of a long-range plan. I think we don't have grand visions to become the solid waste, where we have our own trucks and a fleet and
Right.
stuff like that. We want to do that on the sewer side, but not on the solid waste side. But it is, I'm always amazed at the interest, with all the developments projecting, the trash hauling places view this as a prime, spot to locate new facilities. And we've had at least 2 or 3 talk about public-private partnerships with us. I think moving forward, always having a contractual management relationship seems to be the best. So I think that this is going to look at, it's just if there's an interest in providing more recycling services, things like that. And like Eric and I have talked, it's not a money, recycling and stuff is not a money maker. It's whether you want to, how you want to provide, and that's where I think the plan will really kind of help, guide. And we need to understand more from what the plans are with the jail. My understanding is last year they committed to you guys that they weren't going to do anything for 5 years with that jail site, and so we just want to make sure we don't want the sheriff to call us up and say, hey, we're expanding the jail next year. You guys
That's
can
right.
do something.
Yeah.
It's not in their plans, but.
Yeah, I don't think that is in their plans. At one time, they talked about an evidence room out there, and that was going to affect the footprint of the solid waste, but that's been addressed through
Kerr Center.
where they're going to put it, so I'm not sure that's still an issue or not.
And part of our plan would be to sit down with them and understand,
Sure.
what their plan is.
Great.
If you have any questions, that's kind of the rest of the information that we have to present.
Lewis or Commissioner Merrill?
I don't have any additional questions.
Yeah, I had a number of topics, but I think you've covered most of them, if not all of them. Do you have questions or?
No?
See.
No.
Oh, I know one that we haven't talked about, and that's the efficiency study that we recently signed on to. Where is that headed, and kind of timeline, expectations, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was kind of in 3 phases. The first phase is Elm Creek, and I think right now we're kind of in the data gathering phase, and part of it is SWOT, the SWOT analysis: strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats. I think that is being pulled together, right now. I would expect in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks there'll be internal meetings with the staff, and then I would say by the beginning of next year there would be January there'd be a report on that piece of it. So I think things are going very well with it. I spoke to the consultant this morning, and I think things are moving along nicely with it. So.
Good. The development review software, is that in coordination with Bob Lamb's proposal for online economic development?
That is the inside. I don't know if you know is the price tag like $700,000 or something like that.
That's correct.
There's so many licenses. They were assuming 60 licenses, I believe, and so it's like $12,000 a license. Our number reflected 15 of those licenses.
Okay. So that's part of his 700 then?
Right. So we budgeted in ours, we were given the instruction to budget that, with the, so that's that component that's included.
Okay,
So-
great, great. What are you thinking just strategically with the package plants? Continuing them as is, shutting some of them down?
I think, strategically, I think we need to go through and we're putting a lot of effort into Tartan Fields, North Star, Sutter Reserve. We're putting a lot of, to get those, I think those will run, for a long, I think those will be permanent. I think Sauda Hills, Hoover Woods is really hard because we don't have anything close to that. I think Sauda Hills, it dumps into the Sauda, River, O'Shaughnessy. I bet you pretty soon our permit on that is going to be, so I think there'll be some push to, and then Bent Tree will be taken, eventually be taken offline. So I think the smaller ones, you'll see some consolidation.
Okay.
I think I call them mid-size, the irrigation ones, I think we'll invest in those and because they're really good limits on those. They're much higher concentrations allowed there because of the irrigation.
Could Alum Creek go offline if could North Star go offline if we build Alum Creek at some point?
North Star is its own drainage area. I mean, to do that would be you'd have to put force mains all the way out there, which would be a
Okay,
pretty...
so it's not a good idea, so it's not, okay, just asking a question.
If that area developed and they would not develop further and it was only 200,000 or 300,000 gallons, it's planned to be 1 million. I could see us trying to divert something like that to Central, but if it's ultimately going to be 1 million, it probably is not something that we could.
And that's one of them where we have limits that are pretty obtainable because of the reviews for the golf course.
Eric's really excited about expanding that plant, so.
Well, that'll be necessary someday if,
Oh, it all develops, sure.
When I came on board, Eric was managing the rhino lining and stuff. And I remember telling him, like, this is a unique, engineering is all about experiences. When you get really unique experiences that you can draw on in the future, I go, that is
unique.
That is unique.
Yeah.
I mean, these make great
All these.
wastewater engineers. You get these fun
Yes.
experiences.
is that expansion the responsibility of the developer or us?
It's the responsibility of the
Developer.
The developer.
Okay, well, I thought that was the case, but I wasn't
It's-
sure.
Just so you know, there's so many taps out there, okay, that they're allowed for the first 400,000 gallons. They're going to get those taps fulfilled, and there'll still be capacity in the plant. It'll be just like Tartan and Soda, Reserve. So then we'll be able to put more in there. My feeling would be that we would transition to do the next upgrade and then start charging them tap fees. But we'll have to figure that out, how that will So I had some off-the-wall ideas about opening up that tank and doing some stuff for an expansion, but, the Rhino Liner's doing good now, so.
But the tap fees they get should only be sufficient to recoup their costs. It should not be a profit center for them. That an accurate statement?
Yep, I think once we get done with Tartan Fields and Soda Reserve, the agreements I think we should, when Eric has some time, we should look at that and just,
Same thing applies to Tartan, just,
And North Star and Nationwide, Eric worked with their construction manager. They're not interested in doing treatment plant work right now. I think he's had his one He would rather build Grandview Yard vertical construction than a treatment plant in the future,
Right.
is what he said.
That's in their wheelhouse, too.
But I guess my point is, if, I'm making up a number, if it's 450 taps that gets them to break even, and we can put affluent from 600 into that 150 should be ours, and the taps associated with that 150.
Can you, really the last question is, can you talk a little bit about Central Alum Creek? And that's such a strategic importance for the county. If you could kind of walk through where we are and what the future looks like for that. We haven't talked about it in a little while, so.
Yeah, no, it's a, I think that it's very strategic in that it will, currently, Alum Creek is a great facility. We're about half capacity in that area. And the areas down near the treatment plant have built out. No longer, as you know, we don't have rural roads. You look at Chris's budget, it's not a rural road system. So expanding and servicing those areas where we would just put in pump stations and force main have become really, complicated and very costly. So I think, and we probably would have found ourselves in a situation had we continued to take flow up in that area down to Alum Creek, that eventually we'd run out of capacity down near the Polaris area and other areas where there were capacity. So it really allows us to split that service area and kind of reserve that capacity for the area. The big Walnut interchange is going to be going in. I know there's not a ton of open land, but that'll still change the dynamic, some flows in that area. So we'll be set up really good to handle, you're not going to hear us, if there's a big business or something that goes in there that needs a bunch of flow, we're going to be set up to handle it. We're not going to say, oh, we can't accommodate because we gave all the capacity up north. I think that Central is given Lower Scioto, where we were kind of banking on, or it was set up, we weren't. The person was did that plan for housing. Housing market crashed, okay? The treatment plant up there is going to be servicing retail and commercial on the interchange. It's going to be set up for housing in the Berlin High School area, and if you know anything about Olentangy puts a school up, houses come, then you go out that corridor towards the Kroger distribution in the city. I think that's a very, there's actually a work session tomorrow to talk a little bit more about that. That area, that's going to be more of an employment manufacturing area. So I think strategically, it's a very safe investment because of the dynamic nature of that, all that development. If the housing goes down, we're still going to have the other items. So the funding, I think we've been able to diversify the revenue stream for that, so that we don't find ourselves, in a situation that we have in Lower Scioto. And it's really going to, I think you're going to start seeing, when people really dig into looking at manufacturing and starting to look at the next areas in the county that's further north, like the 521 area, that facility is actually going to be achievable to get there. When you look at some of the other desirous, economic development. So I think whereas if we would have had to go all the way down to Alum Creek, from that area. So I think strategically we're going to find ourselves as a county a lot saying, oh, Central's right there. And from our standpoint, it's going to be really tricky because it is upstream of the beach, the reservoir, the recreation, and so it's going to be a very unique facility and what it can meet. So
What's the timeline on that, say you decide to build it? I mean, roughly, is it like a 4-year?
Probably 5-ish years.
Okay,
yes,
okay,
from now.
yeah, okay.
To build or have it in operation in 5 years.
Have it in operation.
So all that work's got to be in front of that 5 years. So.
yeah, most of that project's Tiffany had on the chart. We're going to finish finish up, so we'll need, we'll have stuff
Something to do.
Something to do.
Something to do, yeah.
No, it's, we're.
Won't run out of work.
I think, we've spent a lot of time with the landowner, we've and I think we've really, it's time we've done a very thorough job of figuring it out. Now it's time to get things lined up and lower side of permit stuff, we got the same permit for Central. So we'll have a feel for how we can work through that with the agency and things like that, so. Was there anything, did we?
Yeah, no, that was what I was after. So, I don't have anything else.
Thank you so much for all
Commissioner
your
Merrill's
hard
got
work.
one more.
I have one thing, I think it's for Commissioner Lewis is headed. I apologize, go ahead, because
No, well, I was just going to thank you for all you've done, and I know that there has been a gigantic step forward here. And we've heard it from so many people that they really, really appreciate all that you do. And I'm just really glad you're doing it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just want to tag onto that. As it relates to this, our responsibility to the sewer users in this county, it's not the county as a whole, and I've told that to a couple of developers when it's come up, that's our responsibility kind of shifts. I think our sewer rates are very, very reasonable, and that's because of each of you and the rest of your staff, and I just want to say thank you for all that we're doing, because how we plan is, the question that Commissioner Benton asked about Allen Creek, how we plan today is going to determine whether or not we're able to maintain that fiscal responsibility that makes us a place to live, a place to work, and a place to raise our families. So I'm excited about the changes we've made organizationally. You guys are all a big part of that, and you should be very proud of yourselves, and I'm very proud to be, let's say, an observer from the outside looking in. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess just kind of piggybacking on that, I want to thank you for all the work you do, and in particular in planning. The 5-year plan, or not 5-year plan, the long-range plan that you guys put together, finalized it last year, is so helpful because this is such an important area for the county. And it's the budget next year ties in very cleanly, very consistently with the plan. And so again, great work, both operationally as well as from a planning and financial standpoint. I want to compliment you on the forecast that you prepared, because again, I think you just highlighted why forecasts are so important, is because you're $2.5 million over budget or $2 million over budget on the revenue and $2 million-ish under budget on the expenses. So that's a whole lot more important than what the 2017 budget looks like. And so that becomes a much better vehicle for looking at 2018's budget, as well as regular updates, which are very important. So anyway, again, thank you for all of it. And this is just such a well-run group, department, district, sorry, I get the right word there, that I want to compliment all of you for the good work. That's all I've got. I think we're unless anybody else has any comments, or, all right. We will recess until Tuesday, November 14th at 9:30. All right. Anything else? Am I missing something? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Tuesday.